Hello students. Whenever we talk about democracy, we come across the term political parties several times. In this chapter, we will take a close look at the nature and working of political parties, especially in our country. Now, have a look at the image here. Can you identify the names? Sounds familiar? Yes. These are names of some of the political parties that work in our country. In class 9th, you noticed the role of political parties in the rise of democracies, in the formation of constitutional designs, in electoral politics, and in the making and working of governments. In current class 2, we have glanced in political parties as vehicles of federal sharing of political power and as negotiators of social divisions in the area of democratic politics. So today in this chapter, in detail, we are going to discuss political parties. We will discuss the following questions. First, why do we need parties? Second, how many parties are good for a democracy? In the light of this question, we shall discuss the various political systems found across the world, and we will introduce the national and regional political parties in today's India. Third, then we will look at what are the challenges that political parties face in India today. We shall discuss what is wrong with political parties today, and then last but not the least, what can be done about it, what reforms have been made so far to find solutions to these challenges, and what can be done in future. How can we ensure that political parties reform themselves? Today we will discuss the first question. The next three questions will be dealt with in the next part of this chapter. So let us begin with the first question, why do we need political parties? Political parties are easily one of the most visible institutions in a democracy. The attitudes of political parties indicate that their vision towards the country and the people. Our parties also play a lubricating role in the mechanisms of democracy. They get out the vote and educate voters. They teach many thousands of ordinary Indians what the nuts and bolts of democratic participation looks like. They choose, train and promote candidates who, for the most part, are worthy of holding public office. For most ordinary citizens, democracy is equal to political parties. If you travel to remote parts of our country and speak to less educated citizens, you could come across people who may not know anything about our constitution or what about the nature of our government. But chances are that they would know something about our political parties. At the same time, this visibility does not mean popularity. Most people tend to be very critical of political parties. They tend to blame parties for all that is wrong with our democracy and our political life. Parties have become identified with social and political divisions. Therefore, it is natural to ask, do we need political parties at all? About 100 years ago, there were few countries of the world that had any political party. Now, there are few that do not have parties. Why did political parties become so omnipresent in democracies all over the world? Let us first answer what political parties are and what they do before we say why we need them. A political party is a group of people who come together to contest elections and hold power in the government. They agree on some policies and programs for the society with a view to promote the collective good. Since there can be different views on what a good for all is, parties try to persuade people why their policies are better than others. They seek to implement these policies by winning popular support through elections. In election campaigns, political parties try to focus public attention on some big issues. They want to attract the public to that issue and get them to vote for their party on that basis. The party that wins an election and forms government does so because good people have chosen it over its rivals. By competing in election, parties offer citizens a choice in governance, and while in opposition, they can hold governments accountable. When citizens join political parties, volunteer their time, donate money and vote for their leaders, they are exercising their basic democratic rights. Participation of citizens in political parties offer unique benefits, including opportunities to influence policy choices, choose and engage political leaders, and run for office. Parties reflect fundamental political divisions in a society. Parties are about a part of the society and thus involve partisanship. It means a person is strongly committed to a party, group or faction. Partisanship is marked by a tendency to take a side and inability to take a balanced view on an issue. Thus, a party is known by which part it stands for, which policies it supports, and whose interest it upholds. Partisan politics play out in India along linguistic and caste lines, and partisan alignments tend to become more obvious in regional politics. This sorting of people into various political camps fuels stereotyping and suspicion. It starts to feel like every election isn't just about our parties competing. It's about our racial groups and our religious groups and our geographical regions. And if you lose, it's not just your party that lost, it's also the things that make me or you, your individual identity, all the groups you feel attached to. It's almost like they all lost. From the above mentioned definitions of political parties, the following can be identified as their main characteristics. First, a political party is an organized group of people. Second, the organized group of people believes in common principles and common goals. Third, its objectives revolve around seeking political power through collective efforts. Fourth, it employs constitutional and peaceful methods in seeking control over the government through elections. And last, while in power, it translates its declared objectives into governmental policies. Can you identify the people in these images? Yes, you got them right. All of them are political leaders belonging to different political parties. What do you think is their role in a party? A political party consists of leaders who contest elections and if they win them, perform the administrative job. They formulate policies and programs of the party and choose candidates for contesting elections. A political party has three components: the leader, active member, and the followers. A political leader is first and foremost the most important component of a political party. Second component of a political parties are its active members. They are the rank and file of a party. They mobilize people, opinion, and serve as a link between the party followers and the leaders. They are the ones who climb the ladder from being the follower and become the assistants of leaders to gain knowledge about the politics. They register as a member of the particular party. They show a strong tendency to vote for candidates in their preferred party. When surveyed, they identify themselves as members of that particular party. They are inclined to support policies endorsed by the particular party. They volunteer for campaigns to support party candidates more than the general population, and they have a higher vote turnout in primary elections than in general population. As you can see here in the figure, BJP has become one of the biggest parties in terms of its members, and it shows the strength of the party in the Indian political system. The third component of political party are their followers of the party, leadership who work with the guidance of active members of the party. They believe in the party's ideology and support the party by casting their votes in favor of the party at the time of election. In terms of followers also, BJP is one of the biggest parties both in India and in the world. As the data here suggests, it has the highest number of followers in social media such as Instagram or Twitter. So now that you know what a political party is, what are its components, let us come to the question: can modern democracies exist without political parties? We can understand the necessity of political parties by imagining a situation without parties. Every candidate in the elections will be independent, so no one will be able to make any promise to the people about any major policy changes that affects the entire country or any subject that finds its place in the union list or the state list. The government may be formed, but its utility will remain ever uncertain. Elected representatives will be accountable to their constituency for what they do in their locality, but no one will be responsible for how the country will be run. Then, who will make the policies for the entire nation? Then laws like GST or CAA couldn't be possible, or missions like Chandrayaan won't happen. Now let us look at from another angle. We can also think about it by looking at the non-party based elections to the panchayat in many states. Although the parties do not contest formally, it is generally noticed that the village gets split into more than one faction, each of which puts up a panel of its candidate. This is exactly what the party does. That is the reason we find political parties in almost all countries of the world, whether these countries are big or small, old or new, developed or developing. The rise of political parties is directly linked to the emergence of representative democracies. As we have seen, large societies need representative democracy. As societies become large and complex, they also needed some agency to gather different views on various issues and to present these to the government. They needed some ways to bring various representatives together so that a responsible government could be formed. They needed a mechanism to support or restrain the government, make policies, justify or oppose them. Political parties fulfill all these needs that every representative government has. So we can safely say that parties are a necessary condition for a democracy. So now that we know that political parties are an integral part of representative democracy, let us find out what do they do exactly. So what does a political party do? Basically, political parties fill political offices and exercise political power. Parties do so by performing several functions. The first one is contesting elections. The existence of free and fair elections on a regular basis is considered the minimum condition for a democracy. In most democracies, elections are fought mainly among the candidates put up by political parties. Parties select their candidates in different ways. In some countries, such as the USA, members and supporters of a party choose its candidates. Primary elections are internal party processes that choose a political party's candidate for the next general election by holding an internal election first. Exactly how this is done depends on the legal framework, internal party rules and informal practices. Primary elections are an example of a selection process with a high level of participation, meaning that ordinary members, or in some cases all voters in an electoral district, control the process. Primary elections help the political party select the candidate who is most likely to win a general election by consulting a considerable number of those who are likely to vote for the party's candidates. Primary elections start the democratic process even before the general election. That is why now more and more countries are following this method. In other countries like India, top party leaders choose candidates for contesting elections. Whether at the state or national level, party tickets for candidates are typically decided by few party elites, a phenomena political scientists describe as low intra-party democracy. We shall study about this more in the chapter later. Parties put forward different policies and programs, and the voters choose from this. So this is the second function of a political party. Each of us may have different opinions and views on what policies are suitable for the society, but no government can handle such a large variety of views in a democracy. A large number of similar opinions have to be grouped together to provide a direction in which policies can be formulated by the governments. This is what the parties do. A party reduces a vast multitude of opinions into a few basic positions which it supports. A government is expected to base its policies on the line taken by the ruling party. Another important function of a political party is making of laws. Parties play a decisive role in making laws for a country. We all know the procedure of making a law in the parliament. Formally, laws are debated and passed in the legislature, but since most of the members belong to a party, they go by the direction of the party leadership, irrespective of their personal opinions. So a ruling party, which forms the government, also makes laws. By doing so, they fulfill the promises made during elections. It is the political leaders who form the political executive. Political executive decides the overall framework and objectives in which decisions on policy should be made. The ministers takes the advice of experts on all technical matters. Experts tell the route, minister decides the destination. This destination is decided on the basis of ideology of ruling party which is running the government. Another function of political parties is to work as an opposition party. Those parties that lose in the elections play the role of opposition to the parties in power by voicing different views and criticizing the government for its failures or wrong policies. The opposition's main role is to question the government of the day and hold them accountable. Opposition parties also mobilize opposition to the government. The importance of the opposition in a democracy cannot be more effectively portrayed by anyone other than the celebrated Tamil poet Thiruvalluvar, who said in couplet 448 of his Thirukural, "The king with none to censure him, bereft of safeguards, all through none his ruin work, shall surely ruin fall." At present, Congress-led UPA are in the opposition against the current government. Parties shape public opinion. They raise and highlight issues. Parties have lakhs of members and activists spread all over the country. Many of the pressure groups are the extensions of political parties among different sections of society. Parties sometimes also launch movements for the resolution of problems faced by the people. Often, opinions in the society crystallize in the lines parties take. For example, a very famous movement that mobilized people was the JP movement in 1970s. It was not an overnight movement against the government of the day, but was simmering for a long time for various social and economic reasons. Parties provide people access to government machinery and welfare schemes implemented by the governments. For an ordinary citizen, it is easy to approach a local party leader than a government officer. That is why they feel close to parties even when they do not fully trust them. Parties have to be responsive to people's needs and demands. Otherwise, people can reject those parties in the next elections. So, this list of functions in a sense answers the question asked in the beginning of today's lesson. We need political parties because they perform all these functions. Political parties are considered as voice of people because they raise the voice of the people, listen to their grievances, and try to solve their problems. Therefore, we can conclude that the representative governments of today cannot work without political parties. So, in today's segment, we discussed the need and functions of political parties. We found that political parties perform various important functions and therefore are very important for today's representative democracies. Today, we will find it difficult to imagine our governments without them. Before we close, let us see our assignment for today. First question, what is a political party? Second question, what are the characteristics of a political party? Third question, explain the various functions that political parties perform in a democracy. Dear students, I hope you will be able to answer these questions. See you all in the next segment. Thank you.